Hi and welcome back to the channel. We're still looking at this 09 gauge model of an 18-inch gauge Works Loco. I've not managed to get as much done as I'd hoped. Last week was half term. We were away on a family holiday. No trains, unfortunately. So I've done less than I'd anticipated. But I have made some changes to the model that I want to talk through, although most of them will be a bit difficult to see without before and after photos, but there's good reasons for all of them, and I think they're all important to kind of mention. So the first one is one you might have already spotted just from the video. I've drilled out the top of this chimney, so it just had a very gentle dent in the top before. I didn't actually take a photo of this before I drilled it out, but I'll see if I can find a still from another video and put it here if I can. But I've drilled down and then kind of worked round to get so that the inside kind of matches the outside flare a bit. It just means that once it's painted and I paint the inside a really dark colour, it will look, at least from the side, like there is actually a chimney, rather than just a solid casting. I like to do that on as many of the models as I can. I mean, some of them are nice brass turnings where it's actually drilled all the way down, and others I try and drill down a little bit further so it's not just a dimple in the top, because I think it makes it look significantly better. The one thing I've added, well, I've added two things, but only one of them's really kind of part of the model, as it were, and we'll get to the other in a minute. There are these things on the side. They're described as clack valves, I believe, in the instruction. And the instruction mentions that there are, well, it says clack valves and shows pipe work, but on my casting, there was only one. On this side, there was actually kind of like a semicircular cutout almost in the boiler casting. And what I think's happened at some point is either it just didn't fill properly when the casting was being made, or even possibly that it's been caught and knocked off before I got hold of the kit. The part's certainly isn't in the bag of, it's not got knocked off in the bag. So what I've done is I've kind of filled the hole that was there and then put on a piece of brass tubing, essentially of roughly the right diameter, to make the one on this side, so that I can put the pipe work up. So it's obviously, because it's a piece of tube, it's hollow, so I've not had to drill it out like I did the one on the other side. So that's another piece added, as it were. And then most of the rest of the work has been to do with getting the chassis a bit better fitting. So one of the things I noticed was that when you had it sat, the front wasn't sitting down on the chassis properly. There was actually a gap and it would wobble slightly. So what I've done, I don't know if you can see it without me taking it apart, which I'll do in a minute. I've glued a piece of black styrene sheet to the bottom of the footplate at the very front, so that it rests on the chassis properly, and that keeps it level and doesn't rock. So if I take this top off, you can see that a bit better underneath. So it's just a piece of black here, and it rests on top of these pins here that hold the camera to focus, on these pins here that hold the pickup strips in place. The advantage of that is also it means that those pickups can't rise any higher and short against the chassis, which is nice. You'll also notice I've done some other bits and pieces. So firstly, what I've done is you can see a bit better from the underneath, there were some steps down. There was a little step down here, and I've cut those off. The reason being was, if I put this back together again, the steps mostly hide behind this tank at the back of the footplate, but because they were actually protruding down below the level of the tank, and they were kind of obviously not where they're supposed to be. I mean, it's supposed to be a tank all the way across the back. So what I've done is I've cut them off, and then I've painted them. I've used that really black paint. If you may have seen it in some of the videos before, it's black 2.9. It's a really black paint. It doesn't reflect much light at all. And I've put some on the remaining bit. The hope being that when the rest of the model's painted, it will just kind of disappear into the darkness under the footplate when you put it down on the track. I've also then used the same black paint on this piece here. There's a little, it's the metal support at the front of the motor. The whole of the chassis is obviously red, so I've painted this bracket here at the front with that same black, and the sides of the one at the back. So again, you can't see it appearing through the kit. Now, the problem with this black paint is if you varnish it, it loses its effect. It starts reflecting the light again. So I've painted it for now, but you'll probably see it will wear slightly. Not a huge problem, but what I'll do is once I wanted to check it was going to work at all. So once I've finished the model, I will touch those up again, and then without taking the body on and off, they should last a lot better. But it's had a lot of handling since I initially painted those up, so that's why. And then the other thing I did was the motor had obvious solder spots and was bright and shiny black as well, and given it forms the kind of the bottom half of the boiler at the back, again I wanted to hide it away a bit, so I didn't really want to paint the motor. I thought that was a bit tricky, so what I've done is I've put some black masking tape on the sides of the motor, and then again I've painted it with this stuff, and that means again that once it's in place, it's nice and black. It will look blacker than it currently does. I mean, it already looks really black when you see it on the camera, but when you paint this bit black, which is the colour they were, in a kind of slightly more reflective paint, then that black looks even blacker in a contrast. I mean, it looks black now because you've got the shiny off the silver, but when it's black on black, I think it looks really, really good. It works well. I've used it, as I say, I've used it on a couple of other models you might have seen in the past, where I've used it to kind of hide details that shouldn't be there, but they're there because there's the motor or whatever support. So that's basically, I think, all the major things I've done. I also had it slightly fall apart on me. This back piece came unglued while I was trying to straighten things up a little bit. I think that was basically because it was only, we've talked about the fact I super glued it, and the instructions suggest epoxy. So what I've done is I've actually now epoxied this part to the boiler barrel, which should give it a bit more strength, the whole thing a bit more strength. I also ran some epoxy across the back of the joints for the front piece as well, just to give it again a bit more strength. But yeah, it's coming on nicely. So I think I'm going to try and add a lot more of the details now. I think looking at it, a lot of the wire runs I can probably do prior to painting. The pipe runs, sorry. Some of them don't actually, go over the body; they go kind of next to. So I will probably add lots more details and do the pipe work, and then hopefully after that I'll be getting a coat of black on the body, initial coat. There's not much I can do about the rest of the red chassis. Obviously it wouldn't be like that on the real thing. It's all black, I think, but I'm going to leave it red because trying to paint any of it would just be silly, because I'm not going to paint the gears and things like that. So I'm just going to paint the bits black that I want to hide, like the side of the steps and things like that. I mean, there's a chance I could paint the front buffer beam here, just leave the cylinders black, this bit that sticks out the front so that it hides behind the buffer beam. We'll see. I'm in two minds about that. We'll see how that goes once I get some paint on the actual body. But yeah, apologies that I didn't get as much achieved as I'd like, but I think now hopefully the body is in a much better place. As I say, it's a bit more better fixed together, but also it sits better on the chassis now. So I think now I can finish it off a bit more confident that it'll last and look right. So not a huge amount achieved, but I'm happy with the progress. So that's good. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week when hopefully I've got a little bit more to show.